Now, I remember along with probably most people, was saying at the beginning, oh, by the 4th of July, somebody had to think how the the economy was going to be tanked by then. And I was kind of like, well, that seems right to me, but that didn't happen. Now, it could happen tomorrow. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that's reality. So let's work first from the reality of
Totally.
that, not from I just hate Donald Trump. Because
Yeah.
that's boring and doesn't get us anywhere and leads you to dishonesty. Because the truth is, I don't know what his strategy is. But look, the stock market is at record highs. I know not everybody lives by the stock market, but I also drive around. I don't see a country in a depression at all. I see people out there just living their lives. And I would have thought, and I got to own it, that that these tariffs were going to sink this economy by this time, and they didn't.
Here, Courageous Media, really appreciate everybody rolling up. We got Bill Maher actually calling out the libs, actually calling out what's going on and speaking a little bit of truth. I do have to say, I'm not a Bill Maher fan. I'm not, I'm not thinking he's the greatest thing since sliced bread by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not thinking he's actually a big asset to the conservative movement. But Bill Maher is actually starting to call out truth where he sees it. Now, he's done this before, different venues, different topics, not necessarily Trump, not all politics. But Bill Maher is actually starting to take a stand against some of these liberal whack jobs who are just TDS all the time. And so now you've got Bill Maher actually saying, hey, I was wrong. I thought tariffs were going to tank the economy. Turns out they didn't. Turns out we ran a surplus in June. Turns out stock market's at an all-time high. Turns out we're not into depression. Turns out Trump was right. So we got awesome stuff going on while the liberal left is absolutely coping and seething over what's going on. So before we dive into this, we got great news in the aftermath of the US EU trade deal. That is just basically Trump taking the EU to the woodshed. This is phenomenal stuff for the US economy. And we're going to get into all that. Before we do, please like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know how we're doing in the comments. For the algorithm, it's fantastic. Help us get back on top of the YouTube algorithm. Really appreciate everybody rolling up. Welcome in, everybody. All right, let's dive right in. So this is a great one. You've got the French Prime Minister basically lambasting this EU trade deal, calling it a dark day, saying that the EU basically chose submission. Yeah, what else? What other option did you have, nitwit? You want to stand alone? You guys want to be alone on the world stage? No, you don't. And you have to trade with the United States. We are the largest consumer economy in the world. We make up 39% of the world's consumption. Now, you guys are probably second. You're probably second in the EU, not you, France, but the EU combined is probably second in consumption, but it's still not even close to the US. So you need the US market to survive. All of von der Leyen's comments about, thanks for the stability and everything else, but we're actively trying to open up new markets. You cannot open them up at the rate that anybody else can. And you have to have the US consumer market if you want to make a product and make a profit. So this is phenomenal news. Trump tariff 15% means European exporters will face more than triple the average 4.8 levy now in force. This is great stuff. The French Prime Minister, Francois Bayrou, said the EU had capitulated to Donald Trump's threats of ever increasing tariffs, and he labeled the framework a dark day for the EU. It's a dark day when the Alliance of Free Peoples brought together to affirm their common values and defend common interest resigns itself to submission. Well, maybe you should have made a deal earlier. It might have been better for you. But this is great stuff. The left is absolutely apoplectic over what is going on, over the fact that Trump is winning. We're going to get into a clip from Fox News, which is great stuff, and then a clip from CNN, where we can see the left is absolutely beside itself. They can't stand the fact that Trump and America are winning. They would rather America lose for Trump to get egg on his face. They would rather the American worker get shafted as long as Trump gets egg on his face, as long as the elites win, as long as they get more power. This is absolutely phenomenal stuff. All right, let's dive right in. Check this out from Mornings with Bartiromo. This is a great little clip. Here we go.
To the president for getting the European deal signed. But now the China talks start today.
Yeah. which is very big.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to take a step back and say this is pretty phenomenal what's happening. I mean, President Trump is basically resetting the terms of global trade single-handedly and in the face of unbelievable opposition from every economist, every think tank, every business saying you can't do it. It's going to be a disaster. It's going to ruin our economy. Look, a lot of this stuff is yet to be hashed out. The EU deal looks very good for the United States. There is a list of
Absolutely. The EU deal is phenomenal for the US. But look at what it does. There's one thing I want to point out. It follows along the same trajectory as every other deal we have signed so far post Liberation Day reciprocal tariffing. So Trump, as she said, Trump is single-handedly resetting global trade. He is single-handedly destroying the post-World War liberal democratic order, which basically screwed the US in favor of every other country. We got hosed, every other country got rich. And Trump is saying, hell no, not anymore. This is truly America first. So what you've got in every single trade deal, the incoming tariffs that those countries are paying to access the US market varies between 15 and 19%. So these countries are all paying a fee to access our consumer market. And we are paying nothing to enter their country. Our goods are going into the EU tariff-free. They go into Vietnam, tariff-free. They go into Japan, tariff-free. Meanwhile, all these countries are also ponying up huge sums of investment in America. In the EU deal, Trump got $2 trillion of investment. You got 750 billion worth of energy sales. You got 600 billion worth of investment. And you've also got defense sales amount to be determined. But based on what their defense budget is, you're looking at another 700 billion in defense spending with US companies. That's 2 trillion of investment. Now, nobody knows for sure, but most of the experts, if you look up the pundits and the economic experts, they say that $5 billion, I believe is the number, usually equates to about 5,000 jobs, somewhere in there. So if you're talking 2 trillion, you're talking a tremendous amount of jobs that are flowing into the US economy. Scott Bessent said that based on all the deals that Trump has been out there making, we're looking at $15 trillion coming into the US economy. The total market cap of Silicon Valley is 9 trillion. So almost double what the whole of Silicon Valley is what you've got coming into the US in foreign investment because of Donald Trump and the MAGA America First agenda. This is phenomenal stuff.
Of products where we're going to have zero for zero tariffs, like airplanes, airplane parts, chemicals, et cetera. That, I think, is incredibly important because hopefully, frankly, that list continues to expand because at the end of the day, you do want fewer barriers to trade, not more barriers to trade. So maybe that expands. But my gosh, what an unbelievable accomplishment. And I get that if you watch the press reaction to this yesterday, they couldn't believe it. They actually couldn't believe. And by the way, I heard a commentator on the radio this morning, a Brit, talking very nastily about this deal. I think a longtime trade negotiator.
Exactly. The press can't stand it. Why? Because America is winning and they have staked their reputation, their claim to power, their money on America losing. They threw their lot in with the global cabal of corruptocrat elites decades ago. That's why the liberal media hates it when America wins and when Trump wins. Check this out from CNN.
Desperately to get Europe to abandon Nord Stream 2 and buy energy from us. And, you know, back then they were hooked on cheap Russian gas. They didn't think that Russia posed a threat to Europe. Look how a few years have changed things. So now they don't want to buy from Russia. They want to buy from the U.S. This is something that is tailor-made for this kind of a deal. And I think very soon you're going to see what's, was known as a transatlantic highway of LNG tankers going across the Atlantic to Portugal or to other ports and depositing, large amounts of LNG. And we will become the dominant supplier to Europe, which is in Europe's benefit and it's in our benefit. And it really, really screws Russia, which is exactly the goal.
Absolutely. Did you see the look on her face? I mean, she just can't stand this. No smile. I mean, look at this. Look at the
It's
look.
going
Really?
across the Atlantic.
I mean, she is visibly upset by the fact that Europeans are now going to buy $750 billion a year of US energy. Think about that. That's 1/10. That's 1/10 of the total GDP of Silicon Valley. How many jobs is that? Tens of thousands of high paying, good jobs for American workers. Now, maybe she's upset because most of those jobs are going to be in the South. They're going to be in Texas. They're going to be in Louisiana. They're going to be in Alabama. I don't know, but it's absolutely amazing that they cope and seethe over this. They wanted Trump to fail, but the American people don't. The American people are very happy with this. Now, on that same CNN, you've got the one guy who manages, other than Scott Jennings, who manages to, speak truth every now and then, Harry Enton, talking about the fact that it's not looking good for Democrats. Why? Because Trump keeps winning and the American people want Trump to keep winning. Check this out.
How has this changed, or how does this compare to during the campaign?
Yeah, again, this to me was a surprising number since Donald Trump said he'd come in and broker all these peace deals. And while he's brokered some, he hasn't obviously brokered one between Ukraine and Russia and obviously the situation in Gaza. But take a look here. Trust more in foreign policy. You go back to 2024. Trump had a 6-point advantage over Kamala Harris. Again, look at the average right now. It hasn't moved despite everything that's going on in the world. You see Republicans plus 6 points here. And this goes back to a larger issue that we have discussed over and over again here in the mornings. Despite any misgivings that the American public might have about Donald Trump, when you match up Republicans against Democrats, Donald Trump against Democrats, still at this particular point, they are doing significantly better than you might expect. And when it comes to the issue of foreign policy, again, what you see is in the American voters' minds, Democrats simply put can't hack it more.
Absolutely. They can't hack it because they've had 4 years to show you what they were all about in foreign policy, and it was an abysmal failure. We have the Gaza war because of Democrats. We have the Ukraine war because of Democrats. And everybody knows it now. And Trump, to many chagrin, was not able to get the Ukraine war fixed in a day. It should have been able to. Remember, they were at the negotiating table in Turkey 5 years ago, back in 2023. And they were ready to go until the stupid Democrats and the globalist cabal and the deep state and the military industrial complex basically told the prime minister of Britain at the time, floppy haired guy, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Basically, you go fly to Kyiv and tell Zelensky, don't sign the deal. This war was over 5 years ago until the military industrial complex deep state got involved. And now we're stuck with this problem. And now it's going to take Trump confronting Putin economically, diplomatically, and essentially the European Union supplying Ukraine with weapons, because the U.S. isn't going to give any more money. It's going to be the Europeans buying the weapons from the U.S., which, hey, no skin off our back. You can buy them from us, and giving them to Ukraine to essentially prolong this war, prolong the killing, up the body count until we can get both sides to the table. But the U.S. siding up with the EU, siding up with Japan, the U.S. making these trade deals and resetting global trade is putting us right in the driver's seat. And what it's going to allow us to do is eventually bring this war to an end. Now, realize Trump's already done this, with Cambodia and Thailand. Go check out the now unconditional ceasefire between Cambodia and Thailand, a war that's been going on for decades, on again, off again, on again, off again. Well, it was in a very hot stage a couple weeks ago with essentially the two militaries simply trading blows, like two, in proverbial heavyweight fighters, just basically, popping off on each other. Trump gets involved and says, hey, boys, daddy's home. Here's what's going to happen. You guys are going to shut this thing down, or I am going to stiff you both with such high tariffs that you will not do business in the U.S. I will shut down your export economies. And within 24 hours, you're like, yeah, we're done. Okay, let's negotiate. This is the power that Trump has as the new global king of world trade. He has put the US back in the position of we run the economic rules here. We are the economic engine. And you can, if you don't want to do business with the US, fine, go your own way. But if you don't toe the line, especially when it comes to foreign policy and doing what we want, you won't do business with us. This is phenomenal stuff. Hey, really appreciate everybody rolling up. You guys are awesome.